Hello, the name's BrianTheBrain, and you know what I like? Sonic. You know what I also like? Racing games. Now, what would happen if you were to combine the two? Well, let's find that out right now. Greatness. Greatness is what you get. Move over, Mario Kart. Make way for the Sonic Racing Trilogy, which consists of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, and Team Sonic Racing. That trilogy is soon to become a quad trilogy as well, given that at the time of the making of this video, Sonic Racing Crossworlds was announced recently, and some people were able to play the game through the closed beta. I am unfortunately not one of those people, but given what I've seen of the game, it looks like it could be a fun time. I have, however, played practically every other Sonic Racing game before it, including the likes of Sonic R and Sonic Riders. I haven't played Sonic Free Riders, but I consider that to be more of an accomplishment given how awful that game is. Like seriously, who thought it was a good idea to control hoverboards with a glorified web camera? Thankfully, however, Sonic has a great batting average when it comes to the quality of his racing games, especially for people like me who actually enjoy playing Sonic R. That game is super underrated. The original All-Stars game was amazing too. It had so many good tracks, very good representation of Sega's franchises, even including characters such as the Bonanza Bros and Open Open for Fantasy Zone, and a great handling and drifting system that made the gameplay as fun as it is. Then he got Transformed, which took everything that the first game did right and improved upon it tenfold. Of course though, when your game has Heavy, Pyro, and Spy from Team Fortress 2, it's automatically 10 times better. Fast forwarding to the modern day sort of, and you have Team Sonic Racing, which is... we'll get there when we get there. With Crossworlds presumably coming out later this year, and the fact that it's been almost a year since my last Sonic video, goddamn. I feel like it would be appropriate to talk about the games before it, showing you all what led to it by talking about each game's development history, summarizing each game, and giving my own thoughts on each game, and discussing what I think was good and not so good. Let's dive right in with the one that started this now quad trilogy of games, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, which I will be referring to as OG All-Stars for the rest of the video. Sumo Digital, the developers of both the game and the rest of the series, started off with humble beginnings. Founded in 2003, they had started with making games for Sega, making such classics as Virtual Tennis World Tour, and some random Sudoku game for PS3 that they made on their Sony Computer Entertainment. See what I mean about humble beginnings? However, they did start to pick things up with the release of Outrun 2006, Coast to Coast, which was an updated version of Outrun 2 from 2003. Outrun was a series of arcade racing games where the goal wasn't to win against other racers, but rather get to the checkpoints in the time given to you, which rewarded you with more time and getting to the main finish line. It was quite a unique series, being unlike even other arcade racers due to the checkpoint system, and it's incredibly sad that the last main game was Outrun 2006. Sega, give us another Outrun game! After finishing development on Outrun 2006, Sega wanted Sumo Digital to create a sequel to Sega Superstars, which was a PS2 game that used the iToy, a predecessor to the Kinect that captured body movement. The game was about playing different minigames that were themed around various Sega franchises, like the Sonic minigame that is designed after the special stages in Sonic Heroes, and this Super Monkey Ball themed one where it played like a normal level in the actual games. The game was alright, but it sold well enough to get a sequel, but not as a direct sequel to the game itself, more just like another entry in the series. The sequel in question is Sega Superstars Tennis, because of course, the best way to go about continuing a series that started off as a minigame collection is, of course, a tennis game. This game, unlike the games after it, actually does conform to its competitor, Mario Tennis, and it plays very similarly to it. There's even these special moves that work a lot like the power moves in Mario Power Tennis, and the gameplay as a whole is basically just Mario Power Tennis, but with a bunch of Sega characters. Despite that though, the game is indeed good. Kid Me had a blast playing it, and I like going back to the game for its campaign mode even nowadays. The game sold more than even Sega Superstars, and Sega wanted yet another sequel to this franchise. Sega was impressed by the work Sumo Digital put into Sega Superstars Tennis in Outrun 2006, so they asked them to do another sequel, but this time, the game will be a kart racer. Shortly after the release of Sega Superstars Tennis, Sumo Digital began work on its next game, which was called Sega Superstars Racer in development, continuing the naming scheme of the previous two games. In an early prototype of the game, Sonic was on foot, Tails flew in the tornado, Amy rode a different looking car, and Gilius from Golden Axe was meant to be in the game, but of course, these all changed once the game actually came out. The game would come out 2 years after Sega Superstars Tennis on February 23rd, 2010, with good reception, and much like a lot of kids games from around this time, it got a plethora of ports, being released on the home consoles, PC, and getting unique versions on the DS and mobile phones. The 360 version of the game has 2 exclusive characters, those being the nuts and bolts version of Banjo-Kazooie and the avatars. The Wii version of the game has the Miis, and originally, Mario was also going to be part of the Wii version, but Sega didn't want to associate the game with the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series. The PS3 version didn't get any exclusive characters because fuck the PS3 I guess. It also for some reason got an arcade version, which I did not know about until doing the research for this video. It seems like it's basically just the same game, but each race has a timer that increases with each lap, and each race costs you 1 credit. Couldn't tell you why this exists. Maybe they just also wanted to compete with the Mario Kart arcade GP games? No clue, but we're here to talk about the main version of the game of course, so let's get on that. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing begins this series of spin-offs with grace. Since like I had mentioned before, this game is awesome, and it remains as one of my favorite racing games of all time. We start by creating a new save, and we're brought to the game's tutorial, but not before the first Sonic Says advice. There's always at least one in the loading screens, and they're basically just racing tips. This is of course a reference to the Sonic Says segments of the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, which were PSAs where Sonic would tell you such things as not letting yourself be sexually harassed and not falling for scams. I got one for you guys. How about Sonic says, "Remember kids, it's better to be fast and eat ass." Thank you Sonic, very sound advice. Anyway, complete the tutorial and you finally get to play through the game's main modes. You can either do normal races, compete in Grand Prix Cups, do various missions based on the theme, or do time trials. Pretty standard kart racer stuff, and considering that there isn't a dedicated campaign mode, you will practically always be racing normally to unlock more stuff. Speaking of unlocking, with each race, you earn what this game calls Sega Miles, and this is the game's currency that lets you buy stuff like characters, tracks, and music in the shopping section. It can take quite a bit to get enough Sega Miles to get everything though, so you will be at this for a while. The shopping music in this game is an absolute bop too. Take a listen to this. Speaking of shopping, I forgot that I needed to go do some shopping myself, so I'll be right back. Huh? What's this? Knuckles? Well, I guess I could add Knuckles to my cart. Once you have everything in the game, there's quite a lot of characters and tracks for a first game in the series, allowing there to be a lot of variety in the normal gameplay. Unlike Mario Kart where each character feels somewhat the same, the characters in this game feel quite a bit different from each other. The stats system the game has doesn't matter too much, but what I was more so referring to is the All-Star mode each character has. These are basically overpowered transformations that make you much faster and allow you to deliver devastating attacks, and they're all based on what the character is known for, like Sonic gained the power of the Chaos Emeralds to go super. These are great fun to use, though I didn't get to use them too much, because you normally only get them if you're in between 5th and 8th placement wise, and I'm just epic like that. The AI in this game at the hardest difficulty is still rather easy, but that's kind of expected considering that this game is geared towards kids. Despite that however, it's still great fun even by yourself, and one of the main reasons for that is the great track design. Across the 24 tracks the game has, each and every one is fun to play through, and I wouldn't really say that there's a bad track out of the bunch. My only problem with the tracks would have to be that Sonic is only represented by only heroes in Adventure 2, with there only being Seaside Hill, Casino Park, and Eggman themed tracks. I don't know why there couldn't have been a stage based off of, I don't know, Spagonia from Unleashed, or City Escape from Adventure 2, but that's more of a nitpick than actual criticism. Items are of course at play here in the game. You can't have a kart racer without items, and the items in the game besides the All-Star mode mode are pretty straightforward. You have this green boxing glove that's obviously just a green shell, this explosive cone that's like the banana, this red rocket that's like the red shell, and you get the picture. The items in this game actually aren't as punishing as in Mario Kart though. You can get back up rather quickly after being hit by one, since you do keep a percentage of your speed afterwards. I do appreciate that, since it makes the game more fast paced. This is still a Sonic game after all, and the game does a great job at reminding you of that. The drifting system the game has is a big part of it. You can drift even on straights for extra speed, and it kind of reminds me of Mario Kart DS's snaking. You have a lot more control over your vehicle, and the tracks are designed with this in mind, along with how fast you can go. The sense of speed you get after pulling off boost chains is exhilarating, and is a huge part of the fun factor of this game. You can also do tricks mid-air for extra boost, which is done by pressing the drift button. The handling and physics are great as well, because like I just said, you have much control over your vehicle, and each character feels good to use. There was one time in my playthrough where the physics were weird though. Take a look at this. With this next part, I'm assuming they did this to give the races more personality, but there's an announcer in the races that reacts to what's going on, like if a character pulled out an all-star or if you're in the lead or last place. He's alright, and sometimes he can even be a little funny. Here's a clip. I don't really have much more to add. The game is very simple, but not to a fault. Its fun is found in its simplicity, and it's a very good comfort food kind of game that's super fun. We're off to a good start so far. It makes me wonder how they went about continuing the series. Did they improve with the next game? What was added? How would they go about continuing the series? Well, I can easily answer that first question, and it's a wholehearted absolutely, since the next game is... This game is absolutely phenomenal. Imagine the original All-Stars, but cranked up to 20. That is what Transformed is. Released 2 years after the original game in November 16, 2012 on the main consoles, PlayStation Vita, 3DS, and mobile phones, Transformed is, in my opinion, what every kart racer should aspire to be. Mario Kart 64 is still my favorite kart racer, but Transformed is definitely up there for me. The game started development a bit after the release of OG All-Stars, and it released to even better reception than the first game, but that was pretty much a given. No tutorial this time, we're thrown into the main game right away. And also this time around, there's a campaign mode named World Tour, which consists of mostly normal races, but there's also some others to shake things up, such as an event where you have to get these checkpoints in time while avoiding traffic, and an event where you have to fight these tanks with rockets. There's plenty of variety, and on top of that variety, the game also poses more of a challenge than the original. The AI in this game on expert difficulty can be very ruthless. They'll often rubber band when you're ahead, they take less stun from items, and their aim with items is basically aimbot, but I wouldn't say it's to an unfair level, just pretty difficult. I certainly had a harder time with the game than the original, but I still went on to beat all of the World Tour events on the expert. This mode is also where you unlock characters and tracks in the game, as there's no longer a shop like in the original All-Stars. You attain characters by using the stars you accumulate throughout the course of the World Tour, with the amount of stars you get per event depending on which difficulty you play them on. For example, you get 3 stars if you complete an event on hard. In addition to unlocking characters and tracks, you will also be unlocking vehicle mods for each character that you play as. At the end of each race, you will obtain experience, and once you get enough experience to level up, you get the next vehicle mod for that character. And these mods basically change the stats of your vehicle, like making your speed stat better at the cost of your handling, and a few others. It makes the game feel like there's way more to it, and it encourages you to play as every character to get their mods. You will be playing as that character for quite a while though, since the level ups are kinda slow. I only got to max out 3 characters throughout the course of the World Tour. In discussing characters, the roster this time around has increased by half of the original roster, with there now being such characters as Knights, Vice from Skies of Arcadia, Danica Patrick herself for some reason, and like I said before, Pyro, Heavy, and Spy are all one character, representing one one of the 3 transformations of the game. And continuing off of that, it's time to elaborate on the main gimmick of the game, which is literally in the title. Of course, you have the normal kart racing, that's all well and good, but whenever you see this blue ring, prepare to play an entirely different game, as your kart will either become a boat or a plane. Each of the 3 transformations play much differently from each other, even the boat transformation. With the boats, you will have to get adjusted to the water physics, which can play a role in how your boat handles. This may sound like it would be a pain to control, but it's quite the contrary. They did a good job in making sure the water doesn't control you that much, and sometimes there's waves that lift you into the air, allowing you to do air tricks that the other players may not be able to do at that point in the race. It depends on if the water moves in that way. The plane sections, in contrast to the normal kart and boat, add the element of vertical control, and that can allow you to dodge items by flying downwards or upwards, rather than just left or right. The drifting also works quite a bit differently, since now, not only do you have to control your drift vertically, but the horizontal control is tighter and it actually feels like you're sifting through the air. The drifting in general, no matter what transformation your vehicle is in, feels a lot more tight and snappy than the original. You have even more control over your vehicle than the original All-Stars, and unlike the original All-Stars, you can carry on your drift boost level if you start doing a left drift out of a right drift, and vice versa. And it's very cool being able to do that. I don't think I've ever seen another kart racer have a mechanic like that, which is a shame because I think it makes any drifting system better than without it. As you could guess, considering that, the boost chains you can do are absolutely insane. There's a max boost level of 6, and if you're playing as a character with a high speed stat, you will feel like you're zooming across the tracks. The boosting system is a huge part of how addicting this game is, and never feels like you're going too fast for the tracks to handle. You can get even more boost with the air tricks, which make the return from the original, but they work differently this time around. In this game, air tricks are done with the right analog stick, and instead of being animations, they're now quick flips that you can chain together to increase your boost level. If you flip left or right, you can move your vehicle in that direction, which can be really helpful if you need to move your vehicle a certain way to reposition yourself. This changes though when you're in plane mode, where the tricks are now instead rolls you can do to quickly change your position, and can be helpful if you're about to miss a boost arrow, or if you need to avoid an incoming item. The items are pretty similar to the ones in the original All-Stars. They may be different aesthetically, but they serve the same purposes. Like how the fireworks are exactly like the green boxing gloves from the original, but there are a couple of unique ones. There's this tornado item where if it hits, it will flip you horizontally, and your controls will be reversed. There's also this glove item that acts as a shield, and if it catches an item, you can use that item yourself. It's very satisfying being able to capture an item that is directed towards you, using their own item against them, and giving them the middle finger. There's also this item called Hot Rod that basically acts like the golden mushroom from Mario Kart, but being able to cancel at any time with an AoE attack. You get a few places and then hit someone ahead of you with the AoE attack, and get another place. Very useful item. Oh yeah, almost forgot to mention this, but the PC version of the original All-Stars didn't have multiplayer, so I was only able to play by myself for my playthrough of the game, which is a bit of a bummer, but I was able to do so in Transformed, since the PC version does indeed still have its multiplayer intact. And obviously, yeah, the game is even more fun with another person. It was fun seeing what kind of BS the expert AI would do with another person playing with me. Shout out to 64-bit models, I'm sorry I cooked it that badly. I hope all of that really put into perspective just how spectacular this game is. This is to me the definitive kart racer, and it's such a blast to play. From the even better representation of Sega's franchises, the stellar gameplay, the sheer amount of content available to you, this game feels like a dream, in the way that it's so good that it feels like it isn't real. Now I ask the same question again, how would it go about continuing the series from Transformed? How could they improve upon borderline perfection? Spoiler alert, they didn't, because now we gotta talk about... Remember when I was hesitant to talk about Team Sonic Racing in the intro? Yeah, well, that was for good reason, because Team Sonic Racing is not very good. Is that a hot take? Not sure, but it's my own take, and I'm sticking to it. Why do I think so, you ask? Before I further elaborate on that, let's start off with the development history. Sumo Digital was brought back to make this game. However, given that the game came out on May 21st, 2019, 7 whole years after Transformed, most of the development team for the game were new and didn't work on the previous 2 games. The development itself had begun before Sonic Forces came out in 2017, and they went with the same game engine that that was used for OG All-Stars and Transform. They had the idea of bringing about team-based gameplay when Takashi Iizuka, the current head of Sonic Team, saw his son playing a kart racer with his friends. The game was not made to be a sequel to the original All-Stars and Transformed, but rather a new series of games that would feature solely characters from the Sonic series. Fair enough, but honestly, the whole crossover aspect of the first two games was part of the fun, seeing all these Sega characters competing against each other, which is a sight that's just not seen nowadays. I can definitely forgive that the game was still good despite that, however, but like I just said, I do not enjoy this game very much. It's time to get into it. So we boot into the game, and we're given the choice of Team Adventure, normal single player, and online multiplayer. The Team Adventure acts as the campaign, and unlike the World Tour from Transformed, this campaign actually has a story attached to it. But just like any Pontac and Graph game, it may as well not even exist. Basically, this fat Tanuki guy named Odalpa invites Sonic and friends to a Grand Prix. They suspect he's evil since they think he's working with Eggman, but spoiler alert, he isn't evil, and Eggman is trying to get the ultimate energy engine for himself, which is an engine that Odalpa is working on that will improve transportation and reduce pollution on his home planet. And then he invited Sonic and friends to race forums so he can collect your energy from them, which is somehow generated by the teams and their teamwork. Teamwork is power and whatnot, pretty typical of a 2010 Sonic story. Eggman tries to get the engine for himself but is defeated by Sonic. Roll the credits. That's all you really need to know about the story, and said story is attached to the gameplay of the Team Adventure mode itself, which works a lot like the World Tour mode from Transformed. Do some normal races, grab rings, do some traffic events, etc, etc. This time around though, instead of doing it all by yourself, you're in a team of 3 now, and the game's mechanics are designed around this team gameplay. You can trail behind a teammate that's furthest ahead in the race to go faster, boost a teammate that's going slow by passing them, give items to your teammates, and when you have enough teamwork power, you can activate this mode called Team Ultimate, which is basically exactly like the star from the Mario Kart games. It can be kind of fun to fill up your teamwork meter and help out your partners, but due to being in a team, you can't score first yourself and win. Your entire team needs to score at least in the top 5 to win. You can score first in a race, but still lose because your partners suck, and this is more common of an occurrence than you may think in the campaign. Your AI partners are actually terrible. I've lost a few times just because my teammates were that behind, even if I were to give them aid by driving straight so they could be in my trail and giving them the items that I get. Like, check this out. Yes, I won. Wait, what the hell? I still lost that? Just because my teammates scored low? That's so dumb. Just who even are my teammates anyway? Speaking of the teams though, let's talk about this roster for a second. You have 15 characters in this game, 2 times less than Transformed, and even less than the original All-Stars, which is just baffling considering how much development time this game had. Some of these character choices are pretty weird too, like you have Team Sonic, which comprises of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, just like Sonic Heroes. But with Team Rose, you have Big, Amy, and Omochao. Yeah, remember Omochao from Team Rose? No? But whatever do you mean? He was always there. It's not like there was some other person. Nah, no way. It isn't like there was instead some kind of rabbit kid with a chow or anything. Yeah, definitely not. Okay, enough with the jokes. Where in the actual hell is Cream? She was a part of Team Rose in Sonic Heroes, but she is completely gone in this game for no reason. And the character that they replace her with, out of anyone else in the entire franchise, for some ungodly reason, is Omochao. It's practically a meme how no one likes Omochao, but yet here he is, alongside a few random chows. Thought that was all? Nope, because there's also Team Vector, which is comprised of Vector and for whatever reason, Silver and Blaze. I get that there isn't really another character that would fit in a team with Silver and Blaze, considering that in Sonic 06, they were the only characters we saw in the future, but at the same time, why Vector? Where did Espio and Charmy go? At least the team itself isn't called Team Chaotix, I guess, because that would make even more no sense. There's also Team Eggman, which includes Eggman, Metal Sonic, and Savok. Yeah, remember Savok, part of the Deadly Six that no one cares about from Sonic Lost World? Well, he's in the game, and he is just as forgettable here as he is in his own game. I think the worst part about all of this though, is that each team feels the exact same to play. You know that Team Ultimate move? Yeah, so every character has that exact same move, with no variance between the characters. I don't even see why not either, especially since you can only play as preset teams. It wouldn't even have to be a different ultimate for each character. All they needed to do was make it so it's a different ultimate for each team. There's already this exact concept in Sonic Heroes with the team attack moves. The work was practically already done for them. Surely they could have reworked these moves to fit better with a kart racer. They have already done this in the past. Another aspect of the team gameplay is that naturally, there will be more communication between racers, and that's all well and good, but they talk so much in this game that it started to get annoying, especially for how long I was playing this game. Though a few lines got a chuckle out of me. Listen to this. It's pretty minor, and while it does get annoying, it is helpful when your teammate tells you that they need help, and you can give them an item so they can catch up. The handling of your vehicle is honestly good enough, but it isn't as snappy and tight as it was in Transformed, and in general, it doesn't ever feel like you're going as fast as you would have in Transformed. The sense of speed has been cut back. It feels very casual in this regard. The drifting system is the same, however, the actual handling of your vehicle, both normally and while in a drift, never feels like I have as much control as I would have if it were instead playing Transformed. It's hard to describe, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think how I would go about describing it would be that the acceleration goes to 0 to 100 more quickly, and it feels awkward to get more speed. I can't really show this through the gameplay, but if you played the game before, you likely know what I mean. I don't think it helps that your vehicle feels weirdly handicapped if you aren't in a teammate's trail. Even if you get a boost chain going, you still feel slow, and the only times where I ever felt fast were when I had my team ultimate activated, or when I was doing a slingshot boost. I think all of that goes without saying that the game isn't nearly as fun to control as Transformed and even the original All-Stars, and it definitely wasn't anywhere near as addicting as them either. Kart racers work best when you want to come back again and again to them, but Team Sonic Racing has nothing of the sort, and by the end of my playthrough of the game, I was very bored. I tried to be fair with the game and did actually beat it, and it isn't bad or anything, it's just middle of the road, which is disappointing considering the previous two games are some of my favorite racing games. This was still quite the journey though, and this video was the perfect excuse to replay the original All-Stars and Transformed again, along with playing Team Sonic Racing for the first time. Yes, this playthrough I did for this video is the first time I ever played the game, and at the very least, I finally have a real opinion on the game. It was cool seeing how these games change with each entry, and it was neat finding out more about the development history of each game. This is still all around a good trilogy of kart racers, even if Team Sonic Racing does weaken the franchise as a whole quite a bit. I had a lot of fun going through this process, and I hope you had just as much fun watching this retrospective on the series. With Sonic Racing Crossworlds coming out later this year, and given what I've seen of the game myself, it looks like it's heading in the right direction, even adding back the transformations from Transformed, which is so cool since that was my favorite aspect of that game. I can't wait to play it myself. I might even do another replay of this series in preparation for it, but who knows. With all that being said, thank you guys for your time, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Before I go though, consider this. People always talk about why Sonic is in a cart and why he just doesn't run, but I have a better question for you. Why am I a talking brain with hair? Well, when you think about it, aren't we all talking brains? Exactly. See you in the fast lane.